Hey guys, Chris Fix here. Today I'm going to show you how to restore brake lights. Specifically, we'll be working on a third brake light, but this method will apply to third brake lights or to restore your taillights. Over time, the protective coating on your taillight could come off, and then your taillights could become foggy because the UV rays hit the taillight and the plastic yellows. You can see here this plastic is not clear. It's got a haze to it, kind of foggy, and it just doesn't look good. Plus, when I turn on these cargo lights, it's not very bright, so I want to fix that. I'm going to be using the same method that I used on the PT Cruiser headlights to permanently seal these. And this method will also work for getting scratches out of your taillights, such as these, or even scratches like those. You don't want to just buff them out because then you remove that protective layer on the taillight. So you need to make sure you put your own protective layer on top after you buff out the scratches with the sandpaper. The method I'm about to show you is going to make your brake light clear again permanently. Unlike the other methods that you see using compound and stuff, I'm actually going to seal this with a UV clear coat, so you'll never have dull taillights again. So here's everything you're going to need to do the job. I have a Phillips head screwdriver to take the brake light off. We're going to be using sandpaper to remove that oxidized layer of taillight plastic. We're going to be using 2 grits, so we're going to start off with a 600 grit. And then we're going to lightly sand with a 2000 grit. I'll show you that in a couple of seconds. We're going to be doing a wet sand, so you need some type of water source, such as a hose or a spray bottle. We're going to need some paper towels. We're going to need some type of alcohol. So you want to try to find an alcohol that doesn't leave a residue. And also, the alcohol helps evaporate the water quickly, so you don't have any water on your lens when you spray it. We're going to be using the same spray that I used for the headlight video. It works really well. It's made to bond with plastic. It's a gloss clear. And most importantly, it's non-yellowing and it's UV resistant. And this is extremely important. The non-yellowing and the UV resistance is what's going to keep these taillights permanently clear. That UV coating is going to protect the taillights so the harmful UV rays don't degrade the plastic again. So that's basically all you're going to need. Let's begin. To remove my third brake light, you just unscrew these 2 screws here. That's one, and the other one's on the other side. That's 2. And now you're probably going to need to use some prying force. Give it a little wiggle. This comes right out, and then all I need to do to remove these bulbs is turn counterclockwise and pull them out. Don't touch the bulbs with your fingers. You'll get the oil on your fingers onto the bulb, and that'll cause them to prematurely wear out. Good. So we got our third brake light removed. Let's go remove the haze. Just to give you an idea, these taillights are in really good shape. So here's a comparison between the white on the taillight and the white on these lenses. You can see it's kind of yellow, kind of dull. And then if you look at the red is also kind of dull. Now's a good time to also inspect inside here and see if in here is dirty at all. If there's any dirt that you see in here, just get a Q-tip, get some rubbing alcohol, put it in here, and you just want to clean out any dirt that you see. Good, there we go, we got that off. Just want to make a quick inspection, and everything looks clean, so now we could start the wet sanding process. So the first step will be cleaning off this lens. Just get my alcohol, put it on my paper towel. You're just trying to remove any contaminants that are on this lens that you don't want to actually sand into the lens. You can see all the dirt that we got off this lens, so we're ready to go start our wet sanding. Now we want to get our taillight lens and our sandpaper completely wet. This is just plain water. You could use soapy water if you want. And we're just going to take our lens, and we're not going to press too hard, but we're going to go in a circular motion. And you can see that milky color right there. That's the oxidized plastic coming right off the lens. So that's what you want to see. So after we've done a bunch of this swirling motion, you want to do your final sand horizontal. So the brake light sits like that. You want to do a horizontal sand. So we're going to dry this off really quick to make sure that we don't have any spots that we missed. Want to give it a good inspection before we move to our 2000 grit. Now what we're looking for is an even finish. Don't expect these to be clear because they're not going to be clear. We don't want to see any of that pitting that we saw before. You can see these look and feel nice and smooth. You can see here at the top I have a little bit of pitting right there, so I want to do the top just a little bit more. And that's exactly why we do inspections, because you want to be able to see if you missed any spots. Not always going to get it perfect on the first time around. dry it off again, take one more look, make sure that we're good. And that looks a lot better. None of that oxidation that we just saw. So now we can move to the 2000 grit. On my headlight restoration video, I've had a lot of questions why I jumped from 600 to 2000. That's a big jump. And it seems like it doesn't make any sense, but I have this carefully planned out. What happens is the 600 grit is a lot more coarse than the 2000 grit. You want something for the paint to bite down onto, but you also don't want a rough surface to spray on. So you get the nice grooves with the 600 grit, you keep the final sand horizontal so the paint is less likely to drip, and then you go with the 2000 grit, lightly sand over it, and the 2000 grit just gets all the bumps that are on the surface out. That way we'll have that 600 grit groove in there, but the surface finish of a 2000 grit. That combined is going to give us a really good adhesion of the paint and make it look nice and clear and nice and smooth. Again, get our sandpaper soaking wet, get our brake light soaking wet as well. With the 2000 grit we could go in light circles, you don't have to press hard at all. And then once you finish going in that circular motion, now we're going to go in that horizontal motion. We're going to dry it off to inspect. And when we inspect it here, it's not going to be clear. It's still hazy. You could see some of the grooves from the 600 grit, but it's very smooth from the 2000 grit. We're going to go over once more with the alcohol. This will just dry it up really well. And this will also clean off any of the residue that we didn't get off, any of the oxidized plastic particles. Now you don't want to touch the lens with your fingers after you clean it off with the alcohol. You don't want the oils of your fingers on the lens. Good? Now let's go clear coat this. So you can see my setup here. I have a stick. It's actually a broom handle and it fits in these holes. So I'm just gonna put it in like that, and this will hold the headlight here. Since I did touch this lens to get this on here, I have some more alcohol. I'm just gonna clean this off one more time. You don't want any oils from your skin on this lens because that could affect the quality of the clear coat. I'm gonna let that dry and then we'll start the process. So with this completely dry, we can now put our clear coat on here and permanently seal them nice and clear. You might have noticed I didn't tape off this black trim piece. On your brake light, if you have a trim piece and you don't want to get clear coat on it, then definitely tape it off. I actually want to get clear coat on this. You can see the plastic looks kind of dull, it's not really shiny. Well, that clear coat's just going to make that shiny again. You want to make sure that you follow the directions that are on your can of clear coat. You also want to make sure that you don't have your dog walking around while you're spray painting. I just moved this to get this in the sun so you get a good view. I'm going to start spraying. You want to make sure they're light coats, trust me. You could do multiple coats. If they start running, then you have to do this whole process all over again. Just do light coats, don't worry about how it looks in the beginning. When we finish, you'll see it comes out great. And now we're going to let this dry for about 5 minutes. And then we'll put another coat on. Okay, that's about 5 minutes later, and if you look at this, this looks awesome already. It's only one coat, and it's a nice light coat. We're going to do another coat. This might only need 2 coats. With the headlight, I do 3, but with this, you might only need 2. Okay, that's coat 2. And honestly, I think we might stick with 2 coats with this. We'll see what it looks like in about 5 minutes, and we'll make a decision then. It's been about 5 minutes. If you want on your taillights, you could add an extra coat, but this just looks really good, and I don't want to mess around with it with an extra coat. So I'm going to stick with 2 coats. We're just going to let this dry now. It dries to the touch in an hour, and in 24 hours it fully cures, so you won't see full clarity until 24 hours later. So in an hour we'll come back and we'll install this on the truck. So an hour later we're back, and you could see this came out so nice. So now when you look at the difference, look at that. That looks awesome. It looks way better than it did before. The clear area looks actually clear instead of yellowish. And we go down to the red area. It matches in color and in brightness. Now this looks really good, so let's go and install it. I'm still being careful. I don't want to touch it by the lens or even this black plastic that I painted. Just to be careful, it's still wet on the inside. The surface layer has dried and you could handle it after an hour, but you just want to be extra careful. You don't want to do all this hard work for nothing. So now we'll just get the bulbs and we'll push them in. Tuck our wires in here. Now we'll screw in the 2 screws. I painted the tip of the screw black. It was kind of like a rusty color before. Just a little extra thing that'll make it look that much nicer. Okay, again, this is 1 hour later after it has dried to the touch. It's not completely dry, so be careful. If you could wait the 24 hours, wait the 24 hours. I'm being a little impatient here. I just wanted to get it on the truck already. 24 hours later, this looks awesome. It's super clear, there's no yellowing, there's no hazing on the surface. Feels nice and smooth. See if we can get an up close view so you can really see what it looks like. That little touch with using black paint on the screw head looks really good. Kind of just sets this off. And then spray painting the trim actually made it look a lot nicer than that flat black because the sun oxidized that black plastic. So now there's one more step. You're going to want to add a layer of wax. You just want to buff this. It's just going to add some protection. It's also going to just really make that paint shine. So all you're going to do is get your microfiber towel. This is Carnauba car wax. It's just a paste. You could use any Carnauba car wax that's in paste form. Just get some on there. Rub it in. Let it sit. After the wax dries just a little bit, we can buff this off. And there we go, there's our finished product. And just to give you an idea of how well this came out, here's a before and here's an after. You can really see the difference. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, remember to give the video a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. The top tip for this video is going to be doing one more step. It's kind of hard to see, but there's something called orange peel. And orange peel is exactly what an orange peel looks like with all the little dimples. Anytime you spray paint, you're always going to get this orange peel. Now they're really tiny, and the better the spray paint job, the smaller they are and the less noticeable they are. And with this third brake light, you can't even tell. You really have to get close to see it. But all you have to do to get rid of orange peel is we're going to get our 2000 grit. You could use 2000 grit or 3000 grit and get your water, and we'll wet sand this. We did just wax this, so it'll make the surface super slick. Now you're going to get your sandpaper. You don't want to press down hard or anything. You're just going to go in a nice circular motion, just knock down that orange peel. We'll dry it off. Before I wax this again, I'm going to use some compounds. This is what you would use to remove a scratch in your paint. I'm just going to buff this in here. It's made up of really fine abrasives, even more fine than that 2000 grit, and it'll just make the finish a lot smoother. And rub that in real good. This you could press hard with. Now you could just buff it off. We'll reapply our coat of wax. After you let that dry for a few minutes, now you could buff it off. And it really knocked down a lot of that orange peel. This is a nice smooth surface now. You can barely tell there's orange peel on there. You really have to get close. If you want to see the video where I permanently restore the headlight, that'll be up on the screen. And the link to that video will be in the description below as well, along with the links to the Chris Fix Facebook and Twitter pages. Check it out.